Good evening, everyone, to those that are on the line. Can I ask if someone would unmute yourself and let me know if you are able to see a PowerPoint presentation?
Hi, Joy, it's Dwayne. I see E3 personal defense handgun safety.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hey, we'll get started in just a few minutes. We'll give everybody a chance to dial on and log in. And hopefully everyone is well, feeling healthy and safe tonight. Good evening to everybody that's coming in. I see some others joining. We will get started in just a few minutes. We're going to try and start as close to on time as possible, but we'll give a few others an opportunity to dial in. We're still a few minutes early here. I see a few more joining. Welcome in. We are going to get started in just about 2 minutes. So bear with us as others are dialing in and getting connected, and we will get started. For those of you that are on the line, all of your lines are muted. So if you have a question throughout the evening or throughout this session, feel free to unmute yourself and jump right in. This is very informal, so feel free to interrupt as needed if you have questions or comments. All right, it is 7:30, so we are going to go ahead and get started. I want to take a moment just to welcome you and thank you for taking the time to log in tonight. We are going to talk this evening in this short session about basic handgun safety. So a couple of things that I want to just kind of hit on right here at the beginning before we get started. Let me go back just a little bit here. My name is Joy Allen. I'll introduce myself in just a moment, but I do want to clarify that tonight our session is going to be about basic handgun safety. So this is not a training session. It's more of an informational session, if you will, geared toward those of you who are brand new shooters, or maybe you've just purchased a handgun. We know that with everything that's going on in the world right now, people are more conscious about personal safety. And that is a good thing because we obviously want to protect ourselves when we can't depend on others to do it. However, with the upsale or the uprise in gun sales, I should say, there seems to be a lot of need for people to just have some basic information so that you don't hurt yourself. And that is what the purpose of tonight is. So without any further delay, again, my name is Joy Allen. I am the owner of E3 Personal Defense, and I'm also just here tonight, just representing a lot of people who you might see on the line. Some of them are in NAGA, the National African American Gun Association. We have some people here who are from Eagle One, the home range that we use here in Raleigh, North Carolina. We have some people who are fellow NRA members and trainers who are here. Lots of different folks on the line, so pay attention to the others that are in the room on tonight. You might find yourself reaching out to them. But I'm very glad to be here, and again, appreciate you taking the time to join me. If you see me looking back and forth, it is because I actually work from home during my day job, and I have many monitors because I'm blind. So if you see me looking back and forth, it's because I'm looking at different monitors. It's not because I am ignoring you. But we're going to go ahead and get started. There are a couple of things that I want to really stress on tonight. Number one, this session is not at all intended to replace the need for training. This is all about information, particularly again, for those of you who are new to shooting or perhaps have just purchased your brand new handgun. This is about information so that you know what steps to take next in order to keep yourself and those around you safe. This is not a formal training course, and it should not be treated as such. We'll talk in tonight's session about some training opportunities that you can and actually should take advantage of in order to make sure that you use all of the resources that are available to you. I also want to stress that nothing said tonight should be construed or misconstrued as legal advice or counsel. I am not an attorney, and not everyone on this line is necessarily based in North Carolina, where I live. So again, this is for informational purposes only. I encourage you, whatever you hear tonight, to go and fact check me, go back and do your own research. But again, realize that nothing I'm going to deal with tonight has anything to do with legality as it pertains to you. So please do keep that in mind. And then last but not least, we're talking about safety, so we want to make sure that everyone is safe during this session. I'm going to ask that you do not handle any firearms while you are watching this session. I can't tell you how many times I see people looking at YouTube videos and they've got their gun in their hand trying to copy what they're seeing. This is not the opportunity for that. So please do not touch or handle any firearms or any live ammunition while we are talking tonight. It would not be in your best interest, and it is not the safest thing to do. So let's talk a little bit about your responsibility first before we get into the information as a gun owner. Bottom line, there's a lot of conversation going on right now about guns in America in particular. The bottom line is this: guns are not dangerous, nor are they safe until they get in someone's hands. It is our responsibility as gun owners to be responsible with the firearms that we own and to make sure that they are handled in a safe manner at all times. It is our responsibility to make sure that those firearms are not accessible to anyone who should not have access. So any firearm that you purchase, the first thing you've got to understand is that you are fully responsible for everything that happens with that firearm. Every single bullet that leaves the muzzle has your name on it and your culpability tied to it. It's our responsibility as gun owners to be safe, to be responsible with the tools that we have the right to carry, and to make sure, again, that no one who does not have the same right has any access to those firearms that belong to us. All of that being said, let's get into the meat of tonight, and hopefully we can try and have some fun. Safety is not always the most exciting topic, but those of you who know me know I'm kind of laid back and I like to have fun, so hopefully we'll get a few laughs tonight. We'll see how it goes. So the topics that we're going to cover, we're going to talk very briefly about handgun types. You need to know what type of gun you have purchased. And for tonight's purposes, we're going to discuss handguns only, not long guns. So I'm not going to be talking about shotguns or rifles or anything in between. I'm going to be talking about handguns, and I will describe for you exactly what a handgun is, so you will know if indeed that is what you have purchased and that is what you now own. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about safe gun handling. In fact, that is the goal of this session tonight, is to make sure that everyone understands and has at your fingertips the information that you need to safely handle a handgun. I'm going to show you how to safely load and unload a pistol, and I will be using dummy rounds. They are inert, so don't panic, and I'll make sure that you are able to see that any firearms I use tonight are unloaded and that I'm using dummy rounds for demonstration. We'll talk a little bit about how to take care of your gun. So we'll talk about storage. We'll also talk about cleaning and making sure that you maintain the firearm that you purchased. Then we're going to spend some time talking about training and what the actual next steps are. So as I said, tonight's session is about information. This is not a class. This is not a course. This is information to help you understand what to do next. So think of it as a verbal and visual brochure, right? It's not a class. You're not getting a certificate, and this by no means makes you an expert in any area. It's going to give you direction on what to do next so that you are a responsible gun owner. And then we'll close with some questions if you all have any. I'm happy to address whatever I can, and I've got some really smart guys and ladies on the line, some colleagues in the gun industry that know a lot more than I do, and maybe they can jump in as well if you have any questions. So the first topic we want to tackle is, what exactly is a handgun? In very simple terms, a handgun is a firearm that was built and designed to be shot with one hand. Now, there are some strange exceptions, but for the most part, that's going to include semi-automatics and revolvers. So you see on your screen an example of a semi-automatic handgun as well as a revolver. I have a revolver here tonight, and I'm going to point it here to my left as a safe direction. You can see that it is unloaded. The cylinder, I'm trying to turn it here, the cylinder is empty. There's nothing in the chamber, and I can put my finger there as well as visually inspect to make sure that this gun is empty. This is called a revolver for a very deep and very complicated reason. It's because it has a cylinder that revolves. It goes around in a circle. That's pretty much why it's called a revolver. This is one example of a handgun. The other example, which is probably a bit more popular just because there are so many options, is what we call a semi-automatic. And I've got an example of a semi-automatic handgun here. You can see the magazine well is empty. There's nothing in the chamber, nothing in the barrel, and I can check that to show that this gun is also empty. What you need to know about a semi-automatic handgun without getting into a lot of mechanics and all that kind of stuff is basically one trigger pull or one trigger press is going to deliver one bullet out of the muzzle. The semi-automatic description just speaks to the action. So that basically the action are all the moving parts that contribute to loading, unloading, and firing that handgun. But again, the key with any semi-automatic firearm, whether it's a handgun or otherwise, is that when you pull that trigger once, you're going to get one bullet out of the muzzle. That's what's important to understand. When you start to compare your revolvers and your semi-automatics, the revolver in general is a simpler machine, but they do tend to be a bit bulkier. So the semi-automatic is very popular. It's a little bit easier to conceal in most cases, not in all cases. And there are lots of different options that come with that. So that's what makes them attractive to people. If you want to know more about that, certainly take a class. We won't get into any more of that tonight. We just want to make sure that we're all speaking the same language when it comes to the type of firearms that we're going to be dealing with. So let's get into the meat of all this, and that is in regard to safety. So if you have a firearm, if you've purchased your firearm, you have one in your home, or you've been given one as a gift, whatever the case may be, safety is always first. And before you even go to the range, whether that range is outdoors, indoors, at grandma's house, whatever the case may be, you want to familiarize yourself with the 4 universal safety rules. I love these rules because even if you bump your head and forget one, there's no way that you will have an accident as long as you are always, always, always observing the other 3. So we're going to walk through those, and I'm going to try and demonstrate some of those safety habits for you. The first one is to treat every single gun as if it is loaded. My house is full of Nerf guns. We have super soakers. We have training guns, laser guns, and real guns. My children, my husband, and myself, we treat every last one of those guns as if they are loaded. And anytime someone passes a firearm to you, you want to make sure that you check to ensure that it is clear. Now, we're going to talk in a moment and I'll demonstrate how to make sure that a firearm is unloaded. I just showed you a quick example. You want to make sure that you are checking visually and physically to ensure that the magazine is removed if it's a semi-automatic. You want to make sure that there are no rounds in the chamber. You also want to make sure that there are no rounds in your cylinder if you're looking at a revolver. So again, I'll go back and show you that step by step in just a moment. The key is that anytime someone passes to you a firearm, you want to make sure that it is clear, meaning that it is empty. And anytime you come across a gun, you want to assume that it is always loaded and treat it as such. Never play with them, never mishandle them, never get so comfortable that you assume any firearm is unloaded. Number two, you never want to point that muzzle at anything that you're not willing to destroy. You always want to establish a safe direction, whether you're in class, or even if you're at your home. You want to find the safest possible direction to point any gun that is in your possession, even if you know that it's unloaded. Again, practice all of these rules all the time and you will not have any mishaps. You won't have any misfires in terms of, accidental discharges, I should say. You won't have any issues if you practice all of these safety measures at any given time. So again, never point that gun at anything or anyone that you are not completely willing to shoot and possibly destroy. Number three is one that I come across a lot as I'm teaching classes. People really struggle with this one, and that is to keep your finger off the trigger until you are ready to take a shot. Until you are absolutely ready to shoot, keep your finger off the trigger. How do we do that? Whenever you are holding a handgun in your hand, you want to develop finger discipline so that your trigger finger is always high up on the frame. No matter what you're doing, it's right there on the frame until you are ready to take a shot. Even if you're standing on the line at the range and you take a shot and then decide to take a break, you're going to pull that gun into your chest at a low ready position, but you're going to keep that finger off the trigger until you're ready to take a shot. Practice this at home. Use your children's water gun if you have to. Use your Lysol can. We're all using Lysol right now to get us through this mess that we're in. Use your Windex if you have to, but practice keeping that trigger finger in a neutral position, high up on the frame, so it is not touching the trigger. It's nowhere near it, and there's no way that I'm accidentally going to hit it if I'm holding my firearm this way until I'm absolutely ready to take a shot. The last rule that you always want to be conscious of is to be aware of your target, but not only that, you want to be aware of what's behind your target as well. You want to be careful that you're not shooting through anything. Let's be honest, most of us, we purchase firearms with the idea that we want to be able to protect ourselves should the need ever arise. Well, when you're in a panic situation, you need to already know these safety rules, or else you're not really going to consciously think about them. So you want to commit them to memory. That way, God forbid, if you find yourself facing a situation where you have to pull a trigger to save your life or that of someone else's, you will automatically think, let me be sure of what is beyond my target. I may be aiming for this perpetrator, but is there a child behind him? Is there another vehicle behind him? Is there a house across the street that I could interrupt with the bullet that's about to leave my gun? It's extremely important that we always know where our target is and what is behind the target. The last thing you want to do is shoot something by accident. Not a fun situation to be in. Now, I promised you that I'd show you quickly how to load and unload a firearm safely. So I'm going to do that very quickly here. I'm going to use first the revolver. I have a 357 Magnum revolver, which is my buddy. I like it. If it doesn't fire, if I don't have ammo, it makes a very nice rock. So it's still very effective. I have dummy rounds. I'm going to put this near the camera so you can see. They are inert rounds made of plastic and springs. And that's what I'm going to use in order to demonstrate how to load this firearm. Now, again, I'm going to move pretty quickly. If you take a class, whatever that class may be, any introductory class, you will learn how to do this in detail. I do see, again, some folks online from Eagle One, some folks from NAGA, some other NRA instructors. I teach classes. We teach you all how to do this stuff in basic classes, but I'm just going to demonstrate for you very quickly now. I'm going to grab my revolver again, and I'm going to basically take my dummy rounds and load them into the cylinder. I'm going to turn just a little bit to the side here so you can see what I'm doing. Once they're loaded into the cylinder, I'm going to close the cylinder. My revolver is now loaded. In order to unload this revolver, and again, there are some exceptions, but I'm going to show you the basics. I'm going to push down my cylinder release button here, push my cylinder through, and then I have an ejector rod that I can hit right here with my thumb, and that's going to cause my rounds to come out. So now I have unloaded. So very simply, that's how you load and unload a revolver. Again, what you want to make sure you're doing from a safety perspective, you want to make sure the gun is pointed in a safe direction. You want to make sure that none of your fingers are anywhere near the trigger while you're loading or unloading. And then once it is unloaded, the way to check, a couple of different things. I want to check each area within my cylinder. I want to make sure that there's no ammo within my cylinder. I'm also going to check the barrel and make sure that there's nothing in the barrel. I can inspect that with my eyes, and I can also stick my finger in there to make sure there's no obstruction. So I can say beyond the shadow of a doubt that this particular gun is unloaded. Now, when it comes to semi-automatic, we use a magazine to load them. So I'm going to load this Glock here. And again, I have dummy rounds. So let me show you. These are inert rounds. That's plastic rubber on the top and some silver plastic on the bottom. I have my magazine here. So to load my magazine, and again, this takes practice, I'm actually going to push down on top of the spring. I don't know if you can see that. And when I push down on that spring with my cartridge faced upward, kind of in an upward angle, I'm going to push down and slide to the back. If you get confused on which direction this goes, your cartridge has a flat side and it has a curved side, okay? Your magazine also has, I don't know if you can see this, a flat side, and then it has a curved edge. Match them up, you know, just like you did with a little ball in the shape when you were a kid, just match them up. Flat against flat, round against round. And when I load the round on top, I'm going to push down, push to the back. Let's grab one more cartridge, another inert cartridge. Going to push down, get where I can see this here. My thumbs are covering it up, and back up under the rails. Okay, so I'm going to load my magazine, as many as I'd like. And then I'm going to grab my semi-automatic. This is a different one, so you can see again my magazine well is empty. You can see right through that. There's nothing in the chamber, nothing in the barrel. I can see it, and I can check it also with my finger. Okay, pointing it in a safe direction. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my magazine with my cartridge pointed toward the muzzle end of the barrel. Okay, I'm going to push that up into the magazine well until it clicks, and it's okay to smack it, right? Because it's a gun, it's not delicate. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the slide over. Now, one thing we don't want to do, especially when we're teaching ladies, we don't want to teach them the pinch method, because for a few reasons. One, that makes it much more difficult to rack a slide. Two, it involves fine motor skills. And if you are ever in a panic situation, fine motor skills go out the door. So you want to concentrate on gross motor skills, those things that use larger muscles. It's going to be more effective and a lot easier to control. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that slide and I'm really going to attack it. I'm going to pull it to the back until I can't anymore, and I'm going to let it go. Okay. When I do that, now my semi-automatic gun, in this case, my Glock 19, is loaded. Okay. So I'm going to unload it. I want to unload it safely. Again, finger off the trigger, pointed in a safe direction. I'm going to turn this over a little bit so you can see. I have a magazine release button here. Hopefully you can see that. I'm going to push that in. Always remove the ammunition source first. In this case, it's my magazine. So I'm going to remove that first. But remember, this firearm is loaded, so it's not empty yet. I still have a round in the chamber. To remove that, I'm going to attack the slide until it comes out. Okay, attack the slide. Again, we're not being kind with it. It just fell to the floor. Not sure if you saw that. And what I'm going to do to make sure that anyone who passes by knows this gun is unloaded, I'm going to then lock the slide to the rear. And that's going to be slightly different depending on whichever firearm you have. In the case of the revolver, just to show you that same step, I always lay it down again with the cylinder open, so that anyone who walks by can see that it is unloaded. So that's the quick and dirty on how to safely load and unload a firearm. We're going to move now quickly into storage and care. Okay, so once you buy your gun, there are some things that you got to do to take care of that gun. It's an investment. I always advise people, as soon as you buy a firearm, also buy a safe. In other words, if you can't afford a safe, you can't afford a gun. If you don't have any place to put a safe, then you don't have any place to put a gun. Now, it doesn't have to be one of these big, huge Liberty safes, but it does need to be something that is secure, that you can secure your firearm in so that people who should not have access do not have access. It's very, very important. If you're not willing to do that, then you're going to have to use a little padlock that comes along with the gun, which means you're just going to have to store it that way and put your ammo in another room. But it should be inaccessible to anyone who should not have access to that gun. Also, when you buy a gun, you want to consider training. Everyone should consider some training. Is it required? Absolutely not, but it's smart. It's advisable. And I just want to hit on this very quickly, because people tell me all the time, well, Joy, you know, people have for years been defending their lives with guns, and most people never get trained. Here's my response. People have house fires, God forbid. If someone has a house fire, yes, there are many cases where everybody gets out unscathed. Everybody is safe, and we thank God for that. But let me tell you this, those families who plan, those families who have drills, those families who practice an escape route, they get out more quickly, they lose less property, and even more than that, they are healthier. They understand how to handle the stress. They understand how to be mentally prepared, and all of those things add up. When it comes to protecting yourself and being as safe as you can possibly be, it's not just about saving your life, but it's also about being prepared mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually for anything that might happen. So for those reasons, training and practice are absolutely essential. I would not bet on instinct saving my life in the event of an emergency when I have at my fingertips opportunities to ensure that I am well equipped to deal with the situation. So that's my soapbox on that. You want to make sure that you understand how to maintain your firearm, and you can do this by reading your manual. You can do this by consulting YouTube. You can do this by taking a class. Understand your parts and accessories, and make sure you document every firearm that you purchase. This is very, very important. You want to write down someplace or record in some database the make, the model, the caliber of your firearm, the date you purchased it, and the price that you paid. In fact, do some research on insurance to see if you might need additional insurance to cover that firearm. Some homeowners' insurance policies will not cover guns, so that's something that you need to be aware of. We mentioned emergency planning. That's very important. Have conversations with your family to make sure that you plan for the worst. Hopefully you'll never experience it, but if you do, you'll already be prepared. And then last but not least, get involved. There are lots of opportunities in the community to get involved, to, join a club, get out and shoot with others, go to the range, come visit Eagle One and see some of my buddies there. Hopefully I'll be there too as soon as all this COVID-19 stuff passes. But get involved. It's a lot of fun, and if you're going to pay for a gun, enjoy it. I do apologize for the background noise. There's a storm coming, so hopefully you guys can still hear me. We're going to keep going unless the lightning throws us out. That being said, I want to just kind of backtrack for just a moment because storage, again, is very, very, very important. We want to make sure that any firearm that is issued to us for whatever reason or through whatever means, that we responsibly store it away so that children or minors, anybody who should not have access does not have access. I cannot stress that enough. As we're discussing safety, this is one of the biggest issues that we see, and part of the biggest reason that some people are against guns altogether. We have a lot of illegal guns on the street. But let me tell you, most of those illegal guns came from legal gun owners. So we have to be very careful to take responsibility for the guns that belong to us. Please store them. There are many different options for many different budgets and many different situations. Find a secure storage method that works for you. If you have questions from a legal perspective on how you should store your firearms, a very good place to start is in a class or talking to your attorney. Ask your attorney about these things so they can give you some sound legal advice to make sure that you are not culpable should an accident take place or should, God forbid, someone break into your home and steal some of your firearms. Remember, as you're taking care of your pistol, you have made an investment. Guns are not cheap. And here's something you may or may not know. Other than your home, for most Americans, your gun is the possession that's going to hold the most value of anything else that you purchase. Your car loses value as soon as you drive it off the lot, right? Some people will say their spouse loses value as soon as they walk them down the aisle. But your gun, your firearm, actually maintains and retains much of its value. And sometimes they actually appreciate. So you want to treat them like the investment that they are. Read your owner's manual. I know that it's boring and it's not fun, but you want to be familiar with your firearm. Read your manual. And if you absolutely just cannot bring yourself to do that, at least go to YouTube, go to a class, go to a gun shop, go to Eagle One and ask somebody behind the counter, hey, can you show me how I'm supposed to do this or the third? And I'm sure that people will be happy to help you and to get you on a lane so that you can practice using that firearm appropriately. Keep your pistol clean and maintained. Your owner's manual will tell you how often you need to clean your gun, and you want to follow suit with that. The last thing you want to do is go to protect your life and hear a click and not a bang, right? So you want to make sure that you're taking care of your gun the way that you are supposed to. And we already talked about storing that firearm responsibly. Can't stress that enough. Now, when it comes to cleaning your gun, again, we're concentrating tonight on safety. You want to make sure that wherever you are cleaning your gun, that there is no ammunition anywhere around. In fact, if there's another gun owner in your house, make sure that other person also checks to ensure that all the guns you're cleaning are absolutely empty and that there is no ammunition anywhere to be found. Also, make sure you're in a room or an area that has some ventilation, because a lot of the gun cleaning chemicals, they can cause you, to get a little loopy if you don't have proper ventilation. So you want to make sure that that is in place. Again, refer to your owner's manual to understand exactly how to properly clean your gun, how to lubricate that gun. And if the owner's manual doesn't work, simply go to YouTube and search for your make, your model, and your caliber, and I'm pretty sure that there will be a video there to assist you. If you need to know what to have in order to clean your gun, here's a picture of a basic cleaning kit. You can get these pretty much anywhere, but I encourage you, feel free to use the old underwear, the old t-shirt, you just want to make sure that you have the tools necessary to clean the gun according to the owner's manual. That's also going to help you shoot more safely. It's going to make you shoot more accurately, and it's going to give you peace of mind that when you pull the trigger, everything is going to work out fine. If you have questions, or if you have, technical issues as you're trying to clean your firearm, reach out again to your local gunsmith, reach out to the folks at Eagle One, talk to other gun owners. Chances are that they have a firearm that is very similar, if not the same, and they can help you through that obstacle as well. Lastly, tonight, I do want to talk a little bit about training, because one of the biggest questions I get is, okay, Joy, there's lots of training out here. I've just bought my new gun. What do I take? I don't want to spend, thousands of dollars taking all these classes. Well, let me tell you, there's always training available, and you can never get enough. I love taking training whenever my schedule allows. But as a new shooter, you are absolutely correct in that you don't want to spend too much money going someplace where you're not ready to take part in those training exercises. So if you are a beginner, you're just now starting to shoot, you haven't been shooting very long at all, or you just purchased your first handgun and you're ready to go, these are some things that you want to think about. Consider some personal training, some one-on-one coaching. That's available at almost any range, including Eagle One. I perform personal coaching, as do a lot of others that are on this call. So again, pay attention to the names. You might see them on Facebook and so forth. Think about introduction to pistol classes. Many classes that are indeed introductory classes will tell you that they are introductory classes. There are introduction to pistol classes offered by the USCCA, offered by the NRA, and then there are many other variations. So look for those terms, introduction to pistol. A good introduction to pistol class is going to last at least 4 hours. If you are taking an online class that lasts 1 hour to 2 hours, that is not going to give you everything that you need to feel like you've had a robust introduction. So again, at least 4 hours. I prefer the 8-hour classes, something more like that, to give you a good understanding of your firearm, to make sure that you're comfortable moving forward with your training and your practice. Also consider firearm safety courses. Now, as I said, this is not a course. This is an orientation, if you will, right? So that you know what comes next. Those kinds of things are also available for beginners. Now, let's say that you're at the intermediate level and you've been shooting for a little while. You're comfortable with the handling of your firearm. You know that you can handle it safely and proficiently. You are a good candidate for a concealed carry class. Believe it or not, especially in North Carolina, concealed carry classes are not geared toward new shooters. They assume that you already have a basic understanding of how to operate your firearm and all the safety that goes along with that. Most of those classes are really geared toward legal understanding, the laws of your state or your jurisdiction. So do keep that in mind. You're going to struggle a little bit if the very first class you take is a concealed carry class. Personal protection classes are great options as well. These classes get a little bit more into the street fighting, if you will, in terms of your gun handling skills. So remember, you want to learn marksmanship first. You got to learn how to shoot before you learn how to gunfight, right? And so once you get to the intermediate level, this is where you can start taking some classes that talk about how to fight, if you will, with the gun. This is where you get into your specialty skills, things like low light classes, speed, learning how to draw or present a firearm, learning how to move, those types of things, cover and concealment. These are things that you can do as an intermediate shooter. And again, for most of these courses, you just need to read the description, call the instructor if needed, and find out what is required. Another thing you might want to consider as an intermediate shooter is instructor development. This is a great time to decide if you love helping others and you really enjoy your trigger time, consider becoming an instructor. It's a great opportunity to start building your skills in a particular area and start taking instructor qualification courses. Many of them do take quite some time and quite an investment. So you want to start as an intermediate shooter so that by the time you are more proficient, you are at least able to step out and start helping others who might be starting out as well. Then there are a couple of options for all levels that we don't talk about enough. Marksmanship classes are great for all levels. These are classes that basically teach you how to hit the X. There's a saying that if you aim small, you will miss small, right? And so before you get into defensive shooting, it's important that you understand the basics enough that you can hit the X. Then, as you're introducing more complex activities, since we know you can hit the X, now we know that center of mass is not going to be a problem for you, right? I know for me, I don't like taking advanced classes with people who cannot stand still and hit an X. If you don't have basic marksmanship skills, I am nervous, right? So marksmanship is something that we can practice at every single level. In addition to that, something we often forget is competition. Competitions, IDPA, for example, the Glock Sports Shooting Foundation. I mean, there are lots of different competitions, and they all give you an opportunity to meet other shooters, to get involved, to practice skills, to learn new skills, to increase your proficiency, increase, all of your skill set, increase your speed, and have some fun. Look into competitions. They're all different levels that you can get involved in. And the ones I love the most are not necessarily the ones where you win money, but it's the ones where you win free guns. So it's definitely something worth looking into. Also, for every single level, dry fire is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Now, we do have to be extra careful. Dry fire basically means that you are firing or practicing your shooting skills with an empty gun, or a gun that uses, again, these little snap caps or inert ammunition, right? This allows you to do all kinds of things that sometimes you can't even do on a range. You can practice presenting your firearm, drawing, speed shooting. You can practice moving. You can practice concealment and cover, low light conditions, all types of things that you can practice. But you have to be extra cautious. Make sure that if you use an actual firearm, it is absolutely empty, that all the ammunition is someplace completely different, nowhere in the room where you're going to be practicing, and always have a spotter if possible, someone else who can check your firearms to make sure they're empty. Now, another way to practice dry fire is with things such as trainers. There are CERT trainers. I use laser light trainers, all these types of laser tools that are available. You can even do some dry fire practice with some of these rubber interactive guns that are available on Amazon. So there are lots of different options, even when you can't get to the range. The key takeaway is practice, practice, practice. Please get training and practice. Become one with the firearm that you have purchased. That's all that I have for tonight. I appreciate your attention, and I do hope that this has been helpful to someone. I want to take just a moment to open the line for any questions or comments that might be on the line. So we'll take a few moments. Please do unmute yourself if you have a question or a comment. We would love to hear what you've got.
Hey, Joy, it's Kendrick.
Hi there, Kendrick.
Hey, I just wanted to tell you it was a great class. You did an outstanding job, and thank you so much for doing this. And I hope that I'm sure that some folks got some valuable information out, but you did a really good job. I just want to pass that on to you. Very impressed.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. For those on the line who don't know Kendrick, he is currently the president of our Triangle Triad chapter of the National African American Gun Association. We do meet once a month at Eagle One in Raleigh, and there is a Facebook page. So if you're not connected, please get connected. This organization is open to everybody, and it's an awesome opportunity to again get involved in the community and learn. Is there another question or comment?
Yeah, let me give you one more comment. Maybe could you just maybe give the group just a quick, very brief talk about caliber selection of handguns?
Absolutely. So in short, You want to select a caliber of handgun that is a center fire or defensive handgun first. And what I mean by that, I'm talking about personal defense, right? So if you're buying a gun for personal defense, in layman's terms, do not buy a 22. Okay. Now, if you're going to buy a gun just to plink around with and practice with, then a 22 is fine, but they are not dependable for self-defense. That caveat being put out there, you want to purchase or own the largest caliber that you can shoot comfortably, safely, and accurately. 9mm tends to be one of the most popular for many reasons. It's, the recoil with a 9mm pistol in many cases is very manageable for most people. It is an effective round in terms of the energy that it delivers, and the ammunition is very affordable. So all of those things, come into play when you determine which caliber of a handgun you want to choose. I do have actually a webinar much like this that I did a couple of years ago on purchasing, how to purchase and select a firearm. And I'm more than happy to share that to the NAGA group if you think that'll be helpful, Kendrick, as well. Gets into more detail on that.
Yeah, I do. I think one of the things you could just brief again, hit, since we have new gun owners on here, could you talk about the difference between an external safety and internal safety on a handgun?
Absolutely, sure. So I actually have a couple of examples here. So I'll hold this one back up again. So this is a 1911 style 9mm gun. And if I can turn this over, I'm going to turn my body to keep it pointing in that direction. You can see here that there's an external safety on this gun. So if I let the slide close, right, you can see the safety here. In this case, up is safe and down is basically the safety is off. The important thing to remember about a safety, it is a mechanical feature that can fail. Okay, this particular gun has the external safety here, and it also has a grip safety here. Okay, I want to keep my fingers away from the trigger there. It has a grip safety, so that in this case, if I'm not holding this gun and engaging the grip safety, and if my manual safety is not off, then the gun will not fire so long as those safeties operate. When it comes to personal defense for the ladies, I'm going to throw this out. I tend to coach ladies away from a gun that has a grip safety, only because when it comes to crime statistics, typically a lady, if you're going to have to pull your trigger, it's going to be in a fight. And the last thing you want is for your gun not to go bang just because you don't have a good grip, because you're struggling. So we get into all of those types of things when you start talking about defensive shooting. So that's where, again, you've got your safety. Now, my Glock, for example, does not have an external mechanical safety. On a Glock, basically the safety, I'm going to touch the trigger here for a moment just to show you, the safety is built into the trigger itself. So there's a little, I don't know if you can see this, there's a little baby trigger here inside of the actual trigger, and this has to be depressed in order for the gun to fire. So this is considered a safe action trigger. Some guns, a lot of which are, your Kydex guns or your harder plastic guns, a lot of these will not have an external safety because the safety is built into the trigger in one way or another. Another way the safety is built into the trigger is by the trigger weight itself. Okay, so the weight on this trigger, and I don't know for sure, probably about 4.5 pound trigger press on this. Whereas a 1911 might have a 2-pound trigger press. Don't quote me on that. Same with my revolver here, and this is empty, so I'm going to dry fire this for a moment. You can see on this revolver, there's no external safety. The safety is in the trigger press, and I'm going to pull the trigger here. If I fire this in double action mode, and if you don't know what that means, take a class, there's a long, hard trigger press. My lipstick is in my purse is not going to accidentally cause that to happen, right? So the trigger safety is basically in the weight of the trigger. Whereas if I shoot this in single action mode, you'll notice that the trigger is much shorter and much crisper when I release that. Okay, so these types of guns, typically, if it's double action, the safety is built into the trigger. When it comes to making a selection, you want to consider, one, really what you're trained for and what you're comfortable with. Some people just do not like to carry a gun with an external safety because you must train through it. It's not just going to come to you, that if there's an emergency, you're going to click that safety off. You have to train through that. People who don't feel like they can train through it, or those who feel like they might be slowed down, they're going to select a firearm that does not have an external or mechanical safety. Either is okay, both are safe, but you do want to know the safety features of your gun, whichever it is, so that again, you can train with it and you'll be familiar with it. Did I touch on what you wanted to hit on, Kendrick?
Yep. One last thing. I hate to keep asking a lot of questions, but I know we have new gun owners out here. Do you have any type of holster that you can kind of tell them the differences about how to have their gun stored if they're, walking around with it or moving? And the importance of having a good holster that protects the trigger.
Holsters are, oh my goodness, holsters are like a reality show all by themselves. So I will start by saying I don't know any gun owner who's serious about their craft that only has one holster. So you do want to consider a few different things. The main thing is what Kendrick just mentioned. Your holster, when your firearm is holstered, it needs to safely cover and protect the trigger. Not just cover it, but it needs to protect the trigger, meaning that that trigger cannot be depressed while the gun is holstered. There are lots of different kinds of holsters. So some of the other things you want to consider are comfort. Is it something that you can carry and have on you that's noticeable but still comfortable? Okay, you don't want to completely forget it's there, else you'll have some restroom issues and some moments that you'll be embarrassed about. But you want to be conscious that it's there, but it needs to be comfortable. It also needs to be something that you can draw from. Okay, so if you have on, ladies, a skin tight bodycon dress, and you have a holster, that's somewhere up under your bra strap, that's not going to be practical. Because God forbid, if you need to access that firearm, the chances of you getting to it without hurting yourself or someone else are slim to none. So you want to consider all of those things when purchasing a holster. My biggest recommendation when it comes to a holster is a couple of things. Network with others that own guns. Ask about their opinions. Try some of their holsters. Again, most gun owners I know are like me. I have a few bags full. I'm more than happy to let people try them out before they purchase because they're not all cheap, Also, I will say as a lady, sometimes my selection has to be a bit more peculiar because of the types of clothing that we wear. But consider what you're doing every day, the types of clothes you wear, comfort level, and again, safety first. Make sure that the holster is going to have some retention so that if you jump around or bend over, your firearm doesn't fall out. And make sure that the trigger is not only covered, but protected, meaning it cannot be depressed while your gun is holstered. Awesome. Anyone else? Questions or comments?
Hi, Joy. This is Mary. Can you hear me?
I can. Hi, Mary.
Hi, thanks. I just had a couple questions. So you mentioned that a basic pistol course should last about 4 hours.
Yeah.
And with that, I was just wondering if you have not purchased a gun yet, could you still attend that class, or is part of that 4 hours really hands-on with your own gun that you've already purchased?
That is a great, great question. It really depends on the course. So I teach quite a few intro to pistol courses. The one that I probably teach the most is the NRA intro to pistol course. And I know that E3 Personal Defense does provide the guns and ammo for that course because we realize that a lot of people either may not have a firearm or they may have one and not quite be comfortable with it. So for my own safety and comfort level, I do provide the pistols as well as the ammunition for that course. Again, there are many courses out there, so what you want to do is always read the course description and contact the instructor if there's any question. But there are options for both scenarios. If you want to practice using your own gun, there are opportunities for that. Also, if you need to have a gun and ammunition provided, there are opportunities for that. Now, I do want to throw this in as well. Many people don't recognize that Winchester years ago started basically a marksmanship program. That program is an on your honor program where you can walk through courses of fire that will slowly increase your skill set. I am qualified to oversee that program, and I am more than happy to help others if they want to walk through that. I believe Ebony is online from Eagle One. She has done that program, or she's familiar with that program as well, as are some others. There are lots of opportunities that you can use regardless as to whether or not you own your own gun or not. So that's a great question. Any others?
Hi, I have a question. My name's Ralph.
Hi,
I'm
Ralph.
out of Fuquay. I'm new to this, so could you touch a little bit on ammunition? I know some bullets are heavy, some are light. Kind of what is the proper ammunition to use for whatever firearm that you have?
Yes. So when you get your firearm, Ralph, and thank you for your question, if you already have a gun, you want to make sure you know what your gun, I say, will eat, right? So you want to make sure it's in your owner's manual. You'll know exactly what type of ammunition you need for your firearm. If for some reason you lose your manual, most firearms, I don't know if you can see this, they'll have it stamped. Let's see, I don't know if you can see that on the barrel, for example. If in case you forget, others will have it on the magazine. I don't know if you can see this. It's probably turned backwards for you guys, so I apologize, in case you forget. But you want to make sure, first and foremost, that you only put in your gun the type of ammunition that's appropriate for your gun. Now, again, if you're brand new to shooting and you haven't purchased a firearm yet, it really depends on the purpose of your firearm. If you're looking for something to just practice fundamentals, marksmanship, you want to plink around, a 22 caliber is awesome. It's great because it does remove a lot of the recoil, so you can really concentrate on the fundamentals of marksmanship. It's a great training tool. They are fun to shoot, and they never really, go out of style. But if you're looking for a firearm for personal defense, you do want to look at an ammunition at 380 or above. So you can get as big and as heavy as you are comfortable with. But again, you want to choose what you shoot most accurately with and what you're most comfortable with based on your training. I usually recommend, if possible, that people start with a 22 and then move up from there, again, if possible. Great question. Does that answer what you're looking for?
Yes, it does, and thank you.
Perfect. You're welcome. Any others?
Guys, I would tell you all, if you're trying to get your lady involved in shooting, you need to have them come see Joy or E3 or come up to Eagle One and see Ebony. And the ladies that are here, we welcome you all to come to the NAGA chapter meetings as well. Joy is on our leadership team and she's always there, and Ebony is always at Eagle One, willing to help you guys. So please, 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 please get the word out and come on out. We want to make sure everyone is safe and knowledgeable with what they're doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just want to mention that Eagle One is our home range for E3 Personal Defense. So all of our firearms courses are hosted there. We're very grateful for that relationship. Eagle One is located at 4410 Craftsman Drive in Raleigh. So please, please come out. Even if I am not teaching a class, I can tell you there are always classes going on and they're all great. So even if I am not the instructor, you can trust that the class you're going to get is of quality. If you have any questions after tonight's webinar, please reach out on the NAGA page, reach out to Eagle One, reach out to me. I'm at E3 Personal Defense on Facebook as well as Instagram. Find us, we're more than happy to help, and we look forward to working with those of you who are moving forward in your firearms adventures. Until we meet again and until we talk again, I do hope that all of you have a wonderful evening, that you stay safe and stay healthy. And again, I just want to thank you all for your time. We're going to close the call. You all have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.